Hello, welcome back to another note to self journal entry, maybe. Anyway, I think one of the strangest things about being alive right now is that we have access to more information than any person could ever actually use. If I want to learn something, I can probably find an answer in a few seconds. If I want to change careers, start a hobby, get in shape, travel somewhere, completely reinvent my life, there are thousands of people online ready to show me how they did it. And that sounds like freedom. And it is, in a sense, but it can also be incredibly overwhelming because overwhelm isn't always caused by having too much to do. Sometimes it comes from trying to mentally carry too many lives at the same time, too many possible futures, too many problems, too many things we can think we should be doing, too many things we want to control that we simply cannot control. And after a while, even deciding what to do today can feel impossible. Like imagine you're sitting down with some friends to play Dungeons and Dragons. You create a character, someone introduces the world, and then the game begins. You don't know what's behind every door. You don't know which people you can trust. You don't know which decision is going to come back and matter 10 sessions later. But that's the fun of it. You make a decision with the information that you have. You roll the dice, you see what happens. And if things go wrong, you can always adjust. If you find something interesting, you can follow that path and the story reveals itself because you're actually playing it. But somehow, a lot of role-playing games don't really feel like that anymore. Before we fight a monster, we look up its weaknesses. Before we enter a raid, we search for the exact loadout that we're supposed to bring. Before we choose a class, we want to watch someone rank every possible build, S tier, A tier, B tier, and we don't want to accidentally choose the wrong one. At least I know. This is usually what I end up doing. And instead of actually experiencing the game that somebody made, we're trying to guarantee that we play it correctly. And I think we do the same thing in life. Again, in my experience, this is what I've realized that I've been doing a lot in my life. Before choosing a career, we want to know exactly where it will lead in 10 years. Before starting a hobby, we research all the equipment and the most efficient way to improve. And before making a decision, we study everybody who has already made it and try to figure out whether they regret it or not. We want the walkthrough before we begin the adventure. And the problem is that life doesn't really give us one. Then we add social media into all of this. 5 minutes of scrolling, you might see somebody traveling the world, building a business, have an incredible physique, someone's getting married, somebody's buying a house, and somehow everybody is so much better than you and younger than you and more beautiful than you. And each of those people, they're showing you a little piece of one life. They're showing you the highlights. But I don't think our brains always keep those lives separate. We start building a fictional person out of all of them. And we feel like we should have this person's body and that person's money, and we should have their relationship, and I should have their confidence. And I want the freedom of the guy who lives in a van in New Zealand and he never has to go to work. Again, speaking from experience, I would love that. But nobody that we're looking at actually has all of those things. Still, somehow, we feel inadequate because we don't have all of them either. And these aren't just people anymore. Every person becomes another possible life that we could be living. I could move there and train for that. I could start a business. I could be the one getting married and having a great relationship. Again, that's freedom. Those are good options to have. But every possibility also comes with this little question: should I be doing that too? And if we never stop to answer that question for ourselves, we eventually end up carrying a quest log filled with goals that we didn't even choose, these hand me down goals and quests. And the problem with overwhelm isn't just that it feels bad, it can slowly turn us into spectators of our own lives. We delay decisions until we feel completely certain, and we confuse preparation with progress. I've talked about analysis paralysis before. We keep switching directions because every new option makes the last one look incomplete. And even hobbies turn into stressful duties. Instead of asking, am I enjoying this? We ask, am I doing this the best way? We spend all of our time studying the maps, comparing builds, rearranging our inventory, but we never actually leave the starting area. And there's a weird loop that happens here. We feel uncertain, so we look for more information. That information exposes us to more possibilities, and then the possibilities make the decisions feel even more important. Then, because the decision feels more important, we go looking for even more information. And the thing we're using to reduce our uncertainty becomes the thing that creates it. So I think it helps to stop treating overwhelm as one giant feeling and start breaking it apart. What are we actually carrying? Martin Seligman, he's a famous psychologist. I think he was the father of positive psychology, I believe. But he wrote about our explanatory style, which is basically the story that we tell ourselves about why something happened. And when something goes wrong, pessimistic thinking tends to distort the story in 3 ways: personalization, permanence, and pervasiveness. Personalization sounds like this happened because there's something wrong with me. Permanence sounds like this is never going to change. And pervasiveness sounds like this has ruined everything. So let's say you're struggling at work. The actual problem might be that you're having a difficult time learning one part of your job. But a distortion in personalization would say, I'm incompetent. In permanence, it would say, I'm never going to figure this out. And the error in pervasiveness would say, my entire career is going nowhere. I'm falling behind. Honestly, my whole life is just a mess. Now you're not just dealing with one difficult part of your job, you're carrying a judgment about who you are, a prediction about the rest of your life, and a conclusion that the problem has affected every other part of your life. And of course, that's overwhelming. The original problem may still be real. This isn't about pretending everything's fine and forcing ourselves to be positive in some kind of maniacal way. It's about being accurate. No better, no worse. Is this entirely because of me? Is this actually permanent? Is this truly affecting every other part of my life or any other part of my life? Maybe I did make a mistake. That doesn't mean I am a mistake. That's shame versus guilt. Maybe something does have permanent consequences. That doesn't mean the way that I feel about it right now will be permanent. Maybe one part of my life is going badly. That doesn't mean every part of my life is. And sometimes the situation isn't as big as the story we've attached to it. And Stoicism gives us another way to break this down. Epictetus has a very simple idea that some things are in our control and some things aren't. You've probably heard this before. Nothing new, but our choices and our judgments and our actions belong to us. Other people's opinions, the outcome even of our efforts, and most of what happens around us don't fully belong to us. We may understand that idea logically, but actually living it is a completely different story. Because overwhelm often happens when we leave the present, we try to control an entire timeline. We try to control the past through regret. What if I would have noticed this sooner? What if I would have chose differently? I didn't have to waste all of that time. And then we could try to control the future through anxiety. What if I chose the wrong career? And what if this doesn't work out? And what if I'm not prepared? What if I look back and I regret all of this? It's almost like you're like living in the future and the past at the same time. Terrible way to live. Reflection is useful and preparation is useful, but I think there's a point where both of them turn into an attempt to remove uncertainty completely. And we just can't do that. And regret can't renegotiate the past, and anxiety can't make a deal with the future. So maybe a better question is, what part of this situation is actually asking something from me right now? Not yesterday, not a year from now, right now. Soren Kierkegaard describes anxiety as the dizziness of freedom. And the idea, as I understand it, is that freedom means possibility. But when we look out at all of those possibilities and realize that we have to choose one, the freedom can make us dizzy. It's dizzying. If there's only one path, we don't have to wonder whether a different path would have been better. But if there's hundreds of paths, choosing one can feel like losing 99 other possible lives. I talked about this in another video that I made, but making a decision means cutting away the other options. You don't get to remain every possible version of yourself. At some point, you have to become someone, and that can feel terrifying. But maybe the existence of another possible life doesn't mean we're living the wrong one. Think about an actual role-playing game. You couldn't experience every class, every companion, every dialogue option, and every ending in a single playthrough. And that's not failure of the game, it's just what makes your playthrough a story. And I also think there's times when overwhelm comes from having an abundance of possibilities. That doesn't mean we should feel guilty for being anxious. I don't think gratitude is just a switch that we can flip, but it may help to recognize that sometimes the thing making us anxious is also a privilege. And that might make us upset, like, oh, you're telling me to be grateful whenever I'm anxious, but it's true. It's a privilege that we have choices and we have possibilities. We get to participate in deciding what comes next in our lives. So freedom can be frightening and still be something worth appreciating. So what do we actually do with all of this? I think the first thing is to clear out some of the borrowed quests. When a new goal shows up, just ask yourself, would I still want this if no one else could see me do it? Did I actually choose this? Or have I just seen it often enough that I feel like I'm supposed to want it because so many other people do? And even if I do want it, does it belong in my life right now? We don't have to reject every possibility. We just have to stop treating every possibility like an obligation. Then when something is going wrong, try to name the actual problem without turning it into an identity or a prophecy about our lives. So instead of saying, I'm failing at life, maybe the truth is, I'm uncertain about this one decision right now. That still isn't comfortable, but at least it's something that we can work with. And then draw a circle around what actually belongs to you. What can I do right now? What can I influence but not guarantee? What can I change at all? And finally, we choose the next playable action, not the perfect 5-year plan, not the decision that guarantees the ideal ending, just the next thing available to your character. Send the email, apply for the position, go to the gym, read 10 pages, have the conversation. Maybe it's just shut your brain off and get some sleep and come back to it tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to concentrate on doing what was directly in front of him and let go of the other distractions. And I think that's about as practical as philosophy gets, because you don't need the whole map. You just need the next step. When you're driving at night, your headlights don't go all the way to your destination. They just show you what's in front of you, and you still choose to drive anyway. I don't think we're supposed to see the whole map from the beginning. That would be a pretty boring story. We learn what we're capable of by playing, and we discover what matters to us by choosing, and we find better equipment because we entered the dungeon, not because we spent our lives researching it from town. There are obviously times when a guide is useful, but if we look up every single answer before we've even experienced the question, we can optimize the adventure until there's no adventure at all. Nobody has all of this figured out. The people that we study online, they're still making choices with incomplete information, and they're still missing things, and they're still wondering about the other paths that they might have gone down. So maybe the answer to overwhelm isn't figuring out our entire lives like we think it is. Maybe it's accepting that we never could. And I think that's another Stoic idea called amor fati. It's the love of fate. And if you're religious, this is like giving all these questions up to God or a higher power that you believe in. It's this accepting that I am not in control, and I love that there is fate. There are things that whether you believe it or not, these things happen for a reason, and they shift our destiny, if you will, in different directions. And people are a whole lot happier whenever they can find whatever mechanism it is for them, religion or spirituality or anything in between. When people can find that way to let go of controlling the future, they're a lot happier. And there will always be another path that we could have taken, and there's always going to be another person who appears farther ahead, another future that we could prepare for, or another mistake that we can replay in our heads over and over. But none of those things are asking something from us right now. And life is not a game that we win by discovering the perfect build before we begin. We build our character by playing, by making choices, and by getting things wrong, and by adjusting when the world reveals something that we couldn't have possibly known before. And then we have to forgive ourselves for not knowing whenever it was impossible for us to know to begin with. You don't need to solve the whole adventure today. You only need to play the turn right in front of you. Thank you guys for listening to this video. I did kind of take a little break unintentionally. I know this is like a brand new channel and it kind of felt like I was already giving up on it, but I had a lot of things going on and that's no excuse. But I did really enjoy making this one. And if you have any thoughts on this, please do leave them in the comments. Again, I read and reply to every single comment. And I basically just do this as a journal entry and then love the engagement that I get. It's a huge plus. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.